In this video, I want to share with you something that I neglected to do in my home theater for many years. But once I discovered it, it made a huge difference on the overall experience in my home theater. Now, if this is the first time we're meeting, my name is Michael Stevens with Youthman Reviews. I make videos on home theater tips, tours, as well as product reviews. So if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribed. Now, when you're setting up your home theater, typically you're going to run the auto calibration software that's built within your AVR or your processor. So that may be Audyssey, it may be Dirac Live, it may be ARC, or maybe YPAO. Now, you might be tempted to just kind of leave the settings as is after calibration, but one thing I want to challenge you to do is go into the levels. We're actually going to do that here in my theater. I'll walk you through step by step how I do it with my Marantz AV7706, and we're also going to be using an SPL meter. Now, this is a really old school analog Radio Shack SPL meter. Nowadays, they've got digital ones, and you can also download one on your phone for free. So whatever you use, I'll show you, or at least kind of give you an idea of what settings you need to use and how to do that within your AVR or processor. Now, before we dive into the tutorial, I want to remind you that there's only a few weeks left for the giveaway for the UMIC 2 as well as the Mini DSP 2x4 HD. Now, I'll have a link down in the description below, so after this video, make sure you head down there, head over to the website, youthmanreviews.com, and get signed up for the giveaway. All right, so what we're going to be talking about in this video is level matching all of your speakers. And so in my case, I have a 7.2.4 Dolby Atmos setup. So I've got 3 speakers up front, 2 side surrounds, 2 rear surrounds, as well as 4 in-ceiling Dolby Atmos speakers. And so the goal is to have each one of these speakers playing the same volume. Because what happens sometimes is when you run calibration, if you were to go in and measure actually each speaker, which is what we're going to do in this video, sometimes you'll find out that certain speakers aren't as loud as other speakers. And so you might run the calibration and you're listening to your speakers and going, man, I'm not really hearing my surrounds like I thought I would, or maybe I'm not hearing my Atmos speakers like, I think that I should be able to hear them. And part of that might be the fact that your calibration software didn't level match each speaker properly. And so you're going to need something like this. This is an SPL meter. Like I said, this is really old school, guys. This is about 10 years old. It's an analog Radio Shack SPL meter. SPL just stands for sound pressure level. All this is a device that will measure the volume of a sound, maybe like in this case, in a room. So when I turn on the left speaker and play pink noise through it or white noise through it, it's going to measure how loud that is, and we're going to go through each speaker and make sure they're all level matched. Now, if you don't have an SPL meter, I'll post several down in the description below so you can check those out. Also, you can even use one on your phone. You can just search for SPL meter or sound pressure level meter, and you can download some. There's premium ones, there's free ones. And even if they're not the most accurate, at least you'll be able to get all of your speakers the same level. So I'm going to assume you already have one. And so let's go ahead and go through the process of level matching each one of our speakers. Okay, so here's my Radio Shack meter. You can see right now I've got it turned off. We've got different weighting, A and C. Typically when you're level matching, you're going to want to use A. When you're measuring subwoofer levels, that's when you would switch it over to C. I recommend using fast when we're doing level matching, and when you're measuring subwoofers, I recommend slow. So in this case, we're going to be on A weighting, fast, and again, if you were measuring your subwoofer level, you'd want to be on C slow. So let's go ahead and put it on A as well as fast. Now, if you have an analog meter, you're going to turn this dial to 70. Because we're going to be measuring our AVR or our processor when the volume is set to 0 dB on the receiver. We want this to measure 75. And the reason for that is we're trying to calibrate our system to reference volume. And basically what that means is when you set your volume to 0 dB on your receiver or on your processor, that is going to be 75 dB with maximum peaks of 105 dB when watching a movie. So now let's go ahead and jump into the setup menu in the AVR. So on your remote, go ahead and hit the setup button. Now in my setup, I have a Marantz AV7706 processor, so your AVR or processor may look a little bit different in your setup menu. But the first thing we want to do is turn up our volume to 0 dB because we're wanting to calibrate the system at reference volume. Now, if your volume does not show in decibels like this, here's where you need to go. Go into either your audio setup or maybe your general, depending on your AVR. In mine, it's under audio. And so you'll see there's an option down here for volume. So here you can see the volume is set to a scale in decibels. Yours may be set to something like this, 0 to 98. So if I were to scroll up and down on the volume, it's going to go from 0 all the way up to 98. But what we want to do is see it in a scale of decibels. So we're going to go back into this menu and change that to a dB scale. Now we can back out of that and we'll back up once more. So with our volume set to dB, we're going to turn this down or up to 0 decibels. The next step is we need to adjust the speaker levels. So in your menu, you need to look for something that shows speakers or maybe levels. In my case, both Denon as well as Marantz use the same menu. So we're going to come down to speakers. And we've already run Audyssey. And so now what we want to do is manually tweak some of those settings. So we'll come down to manual setup. And here you can see the fourth option down is levels. Now I don't have two cameras to be able to show you what I'm seeing on screen as well as the SPL meter, but just realize as we go through each channel, what I'm trying to do is get each specific channel to 75 dB on my SPL meter. But what you will be able to see is the adjustments that I'm making to each channel, left, center, right, all of my surrounds, all of my Atmos speakers, and then in my current setup right now I'm reviewing 4 SVS 3000 micro subwoofers, and so we'll be adjusting those as well. Now remember earlier when I mentioned when you're measuring subwoofers, you need to make two changes to your SPL meter. I recommend changing it to C weighting and change it to slow. But for right now, we've got it set on my SPL meter to A weighting and fast because we're going to be measuring the speakers first. So here we go. All right, so this one is just a little bit low, so I'm going to bump up the dB for the front left speaker. Now again, I have the microphone pointed directly at the speaker. All right, that one looks good. That one's good. So see, that one's really low. So Audyssey didn't do a good job at level matching those. So I need to bump that up quite a bit. So now that we're measuring subwoofers, I'm actually going to come down to subwoofer 1 plus 2 because I want to measure the overall volume of all 4 subwoofers that I have hooked up. And again, I'm going to switch on my SPL meter to C weighting and to slow. . probably about right there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce the volume on the AVR so that you can hear me more clearly. So as you can see, we had to make just a few small tweaks to the front, center, and right levels. But where Audyssey didn't do a good job was to balance the rest of my speakers with my front speakers. And so we had to increase quite a bit the surrounds as well as the Atmos speakers. So now that you've got your speakers level matched, what I would encourage you to do is play some content, maybe a movie, and just listen to see how well the speakers are balanced in your setup. Now with that said, sometimes you may not want every one of your speakers to be exactly level matched, and here's where preference and taste comes into play. I know some of you guys like to bump up your center channel maybe 2 or 3 decibels. I've heard of guys kind of bumping up their subwoofers, which that's me. I like to run them probably about 3 dB, maybe 5 dB hot above the rest of my speakers. And I've heard of guys bumping up maybe their Atmos channels a couple of dB because they wanted to hear those a little bit more. So again, that's going to come down to preference, but my recommendation is at least start with all of them level matched, and then you can kind of tweak those to your liking. I know in my setup, once I run Audyssey, the surrounds and Atmos speakers, they just feel kind of non-existent because the front speakers are playing way louder than the rest of the system. And once I balance those, then I get a completely immersive experience in my home theater. Now don't forget to head over to youthmanreviews.com for your chance to win a UMIC 2 calibrated microphone as well as a mini DSP 2x4 HD. If you found this video helpful, make sure you like and subscribe because I've got plenty of new content in the works. And as always, you guys be blessed, and we'll catch you in the next video.